Like Gemara, there's a sequence of we're starting Masechta Nazir today, Gimel Shvat. There's a sequence of Masechtas, and in Gemara says in the beginning, the Gemara is going to wonder how Nadarim and Nazir gets into this section of Gemara, which is Nashim. And basically, what the Gemara there says is that because the seventh parak in Ksubis is Hamadit and talks about Nadarim, so from there it moves on to Nadarim. And because in the same pasuk of Nadarim it talks about Nadarim, Linda Neder of Lahazar Nazir, Nazir Lahazar, so therefore we go into Nazir. And then plus we're going to have a further logic here, why Nazir is studied here, right next to Masechta Seiter. Because Nazir is even less than Neder. Nazir is all about Kabbanis. Because the Nazir has to bring Kabbanis, we'll discuss the different Kabbanis that belong to Kachim, if anything. So why is it here? And so we're going to say that it's here because it follows on from the Darim, and it's associated with Masechta Seiter, as we'll see in a minute. So basically, a Nazir is someone that is going to refrain or is forbidden to not only drink wine, but have anything to do with grapes, anything that emanates from grapes, including the grapes themselves. Nor can they shave their hair or cut their hair, nor can they contaminate themselves. There are different kinds of Naziris. We'll see later. There's Nazir Shimshon, Nazir Shmuel, and so on. Like Avshalom was a Nazir. We'll discuss it later on in the Gemara. But that's a general type of Nazir. Now, if a Nazir becomes Tameh in middle, they have to bring Kabbanis, a pair of pigeons and an ale and a chatzas, and they start all over again. Yom Rishayim, it falls away, and they have to start all over again. And what do you call it? So that's basically the laws of Nazir. But the beginning of the Masechta Nazir starts off exactly the same way as Masechta Nadarim. Like just like in the Nadarim, there are three categories in the Nadarim. There's the essential Neder. And then you have a thing called the Kinyan Neder. Kinyan Neder, we'll say in a minute. And then you have the Yodis Neder. The Kinyan Neder is, we had an argument between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. What exactly is a Kinyan Neder? According to Rabbi Yochanan, it's just different languages. With any other language you say it in. So why does the Mishnah then choose three different languages, three different examples? Nazir, we'll see, for Nazir we have Nazik, so the Kuf and the Reish are interchangeable. You just take off the bottom leg, it becomes on the Reish. Or we have another word there, which is Noziach, which I guess the Ches, add an extra leg, remove that leg, and becomes a Reish. Or Paziach, which is the Pei, is like a Nazir, is like a Nun, and the Ches these are like slang. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan says, and therefore and then you have the Shlokish says it's Loshen Shabod and Chacham. These are words that the rabbis made up. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, if it means basically any language you say it in, why choose these three words? Just say 70 languages. Because all other languages you say, you only, according to Tesis and others, is only if you understand what you're saying. These three words, because it's so similar to Hebrew, even if you don't really understand what you're saying, you are still obligated to accept upon yourself Naziris. The Tesis of Yom Tov has a big problem with that, and everyone talks about this Tesis of Yom Tov, and the problem is because we know that you have to, when it comes to Nadarim and Nazir, it has to be Piv v'liba shavin. You have to say, and your heart should reflect what you're thinking, and your thinking should reflect what you're saying. But if you're telling me you don't understand what you're saying, then your words don't mean anything, or you don't understand, you're not accepting Naziris. How can I be an acceptable Naziris? And others say there's a difference between whether you understand what the words actually mean, but you know what your intent is. It's not that you don't know that you're saying the word Nazir. You know that you're saying Nazir. You have no idea how the word Nazik becomes Nazir. So you don't understand the word itself. And that's the Chiddush. In other languages, if you don't understand the words, what you're saying, it's not an acceptance of Naziris. But these three words, even if you don't understand what the actual word means, or how you got from Nazir to Nazik, nevertheless, your intent was to be Nazir. And Chacham said these words, because they're close enough to the Hebrew original. The Shlokish says it's Loshen Shabbat and Chachamim, and all the Rishonim and the Dorim have a big problem with that, and that is if it's only from the rabbis. So how do you bring Karbonis into the Beis Hamikdash? Because we know the rule is that Chulin from the Torah not really a Nazir. It's only these are words that were devised by the rabbis. Nazik, Nazir, Paziach. If these are not real words, that means Mahatayra. It's not. You're not really a Nazir. Rabbanon. What do you mean you bring a carbon? It's not a carbon. It's Chulin Ba'azar. The simple answer, which most Rishonim don't give, or Rishonim don't give at all, is that Reish Lakish, actually, we're going to see in the Chavtes and Lamed, fascinating argument of Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan, and part of the consequence of that argument is that Reish Lakish holds, the Gemara says, that Chulin Azara is not Mahatayra. He holds that actually bringing an ordinary animal into the base of Mikdash is not forbidden from the Torah, so there's no issue whatsoever. But others say that even though the Chachamim made these words, once the Chacham made these words, they take on now the full weight of the Torah. The Chacham have that capacity, they have that koyach. So now let's learn the Gemara. The Mishnah is very similar to the first page, actually, very similar to the Dar. We'll bring back some memories. Called kinuye naziris kinaziris. The kinui of a nazir, that's like a kinui literally means like a nickname. So these are different, just words that we say. That these are semantics, but it's similar to naziris. They have the same thing as naziris. Now we're going to give examples, but the examples we're going to give are not from kinuyim. They're actually yodis. Yodis means a handle. A handle is what you carry the pot with. So it's not the actual pot, but it's extension of the pot. Yodis is when you make a sentence, but it's incomplete. We know where you're going with it. And we said last time in Yodorim, there are two kinds of yodim. There's yodayim meichichis, yodayim she'ei meichichis. There's time it's an incomplete sentence. We know exactly 100% what you're saying. And then you have yodayim. Then sometimes you have like it's 50-50. It could mean this and it could mean that. Yodayim she'ei meichichis. And we had a whole discussion there, which we'll have again here in brief, whether Yadayim she'ein mechichis haven Yadayim or not. So the example to give is, somebody says, hey, I will be. I will be what? He didn't complete the sentence. Harei nazir is considered a nazir. Or if it's a yad, it's incomplete. So you start over with kinuyim, and the example we give is a yad, an incomplete sentence. Or he said, ahei no, I will beautify myself. How do we know what that means? Nazir, it's a nazir. Now, as the Rishonim explain, ahei means that I will be. Ahei can mean I'll fast, but the Taisa says ahei means I will start straight away. You cannot start a fast straight away. It has to be. You have to be in the beginning, the night before. You have to accept it. You start at night. You start in the morning. In the middle of the day, you say ahei can't be really a fast. So it probably what you meant was I will be something that I can start straight away. I will be. So it's a nazir. Or ahei is about myself. I will be. Fasting is a verb. You're going to fast, or you're going to refrain from eating. It's a ma'isa. Ahei is not a ma'isa. Hey, I'll be transformed into something. So that's why it's leaning more towards nazir. Anyway, nazir. What now are examples of kinui? Nazir, nazir, pazir. Harei is a nazir. If you say hareini kazeh, I will be like that person. Hareini misalsel. That person obviously will be another. We'll see more later. Hareini misalsel. I will go ahead and part my hair. Hareini mechalkel. I will gather my hair together and build it. Harei alai l'shalech peris. All expressions to do with hair. I will let my hair grow. Harei is a nazir. What else is there that involves hair? So it means obviously you're saying you want to become a nazir. If a person says, I will take upon myself pigeons, and there's another walking by. What do you mean take upon myself the pigeons? Obviously, what Imam May says, nazir. I'm taking upon myself the kabbanas of a nazir. I'll be a nazir. The Chum say, ain't a nazir. Maybe he's just taking on the kabbanas. It's an neder that it is a neder that he has to bring those two birds, that's a set of birds as a carbon, but doesn't have to go through the process of naziris. Okay, so the Gemara Mechdi Tana, our Tana, Gary, this is a similar question. We say the Noshika, we're middle of the subject of to do with women's issues. My time at Tani Nazir, where does Nazir come here? Nazir is all about Kabbalas. How does Nazir get in here? Says the Gemara, Tana Krokai. The Tana follows the pasuk. In Kiseitze, when it talks about divorce, it says, if you don't find favor in your eyes, she doesn't find favor in your eyes, you found her doing something wrong. So we know when you divorce, it has to do with the fact that there's an erva, something went wrong, went awry. So, and then we learn saita, which saita is if a woman, let's say, suspected of committing adultery. And then we have in the Torah, Pashas Naseh, right by saita, we also have Pashas Nazir. And we say, Haroya, saita v'kukula, yad atzim v'nayayin. So therefore, Nazir fits in. The obvious question is then Saita should be first and then Nazir. Haraya Saita b'kakula. If you see a Saita, Hashgacha Pratis, you saw a Saita being treated in the base of Mikdash, is Yazir Asmaniyah. Probably alcohol led to, fuel this kind of behavior, and you should separate from wine. So then Nazir should be following Saita. The reason why Nazir, once we put Nazir in Nashim, the reason why Nazir precedes Saita is because Nazir follows Nadarim. In the very same pasuk where it talks about vows, it also includes Nazir. So it makes sense already to bring it here. And why Nadarim is there? Because it follows service. That's how it works. What caused it to behave this way? Yain, alcohol. And it says, anyone who witnesses it, it's amazing. The Gemara talks about the idea of Hashgacha Pratis. Baal Shem Tov said, if you see something, you have to apply it to yourself and see how it influences your future behavior. If you see a Satan is behaving, except for your wine. So that's why it's here. Now, we just want to know that traces in this Masechta is not normal traces. Traces in this Masechta is a parshan. A parshan means he's just like Rashi, different kind of traces altogether. And he elaborates far more than Rashi. It's like a Rashbam on the Gemara Bava Basra. Elaborates much further, but basically, Teishes here is purely Pirish. I mean, sometimes he has like questions, but generally it's Pirish. Second about it further, the Mishach starts off saying Kinuyin. I'm going to tell you all about Kinuyin, which are like words that the rabbis made up or just other languages. And the first example it gives is actually incomplete sentences. Yades, for example, I'll beautify myself. How does that work? Amar says, others say Kadi. The word is missing. This is how there are a couple of words missing in our Mishnah. Called Kinuyin Naziris, and what's missing is the Yadis, Naziris, Naziris. And so two Yadis are also like a Nazir. The Elohen Yadis, the following example of the Yadis. So in other words, the second thing they would include the Mishnah also Yadis, and then the Mishnah will give you examples of Yadis. Says the Gemara. I don't understand. If the first thing the Mishnah brings down is Kinuim and followed by Yodis, so when it comes to examples, also the first examples we should have given are examples of Kinuim, followed by examples of Yodis. But leave first Kinuim Bereisha. Why don't you explain Kinuim first? Says the Gemara, because this is the exact same sugi we had in the door. There we went a little bit further, but same idea. Whatever was the last thing that was mentioned, that's the first thing they describe. And I'll prove it to you, it's a style of many Tanaim. Now we learned what kind of oils and wicks can you use to light on Shabbos and what can't you? And then the first examples in the Mishnah are things that you shouldn't use. First explains what you shouldn't light with. What do you let us store things on Shabbos or you're not allowed to store things on Shabbos? And the first example it gives is Ein Taimim Bereisha. So in other words, the last thing it brought down is the first thing that it explains. What can a woman carry on Shabbos? What can't you carry on Shabbos? It tells you Bereisha first what a woman should not carry on Shabbos. Same thing. Says the Gemara, is that a rule? I'm going to cite you a few examples all the way around. It follows the same sequence as the Mishnah, for example. But not, what can a behemoth go out with on Shabbos? What can he carry? What can't he carry? And the first thing that explains is what you could walk out with. The same sequence as the Mishnah. Yes, but you learn in Babasa that those who inherit themselves from somebody else, and if they pass away, they pass on to others. And and they inherit back, yet there's Neichlin of those who inherit from, but Manchilin, they inherit from the mother, but they don't give back to their mother, for example. Or Manchilin, they inherit others, but Neichlin, like a mother to the children, but they don't take back. And then the fourth category, Neichlin, Manchilin. That's right. So according to you, the first thing you should explain, as you explain, is Manchilin. And yet, it goes back to the order. So this is the rule. Sometimes it has this style, and sometimes what's the rule then? Sometimes we say that each Tana has their own style. But since they're all Stam Mishnahs generally not Meir, you would think they'll all be the same and be a uniform style. There we were talking about prohibitions that devolve on the person itself, which are so stringent. The Fadish is an after Reisha. So the first thing it describes is the Easter of itself. Gabi Behema. The Surah I did a Behema, the Easter by Behema, Behema carrier, can't be is about the Behema. Also, there, because the whole thing is very distant from you anyway, it's it's a lighter Avera, so therefore we'll look for leniencies first before we get to the stringencies. Okay, what about Yesh Neuchlin? Yesh Neuchlin doesn't do with stringencies, nothing to do with Averas either on you or an animal. What she started saying, these people don't inherit and don't bequeath. What's the laws of inheritance? What's the idea? So first you have to explain to us all the laws of inheritance and bequeathment. Exactly. So therefore it has to start off telling you how nachla works generally, inheritance works generally. Says you want to over here, following that logic over here, we have Kinuyim and Yodis. Kinuyim should have been explained first, because that's more Iker than Yodis. Ella Hainu Tam Yodis. You know why Yodis is explained first? We learn from a pasuk from Nazir le Hazir. We learn out Nazir Lihazir, it's redundant. So we had one opinion there that we learn out. That's where we learn the concept of Yodis. This Chavivale, something you learn out from a pasuk, he enjoys. It's not the foolish in the pasuk, and therefore he enjoys, and that's why he brings it down first. Says the Gemara, so when the Mishnah opens up and gives you the laws in the Dharim, instead of saying Kol Kinui and Nazidik and Nazidik, start off Kol Yodis Nazidik and Nazidik. So actually, in the Dharim, when the Gemara concludes, since it's missing in the Mishnah, how do you know where to put it in? Who told you put it in the second line? Put it in the first line. Be happy, but say Yodis Taka first. But over here, because this is the opening of the Masechta, we find a little bit hard that the opening of the Masechta, the very first line, already missing words, the very first words. It's one thing that in the Mishnah, they missed out a few words. But if you're going to say that Yodis was the first thing written in the Mishnah, but it's missing, very odd. So therefore, we say, no, the Mishnah is correct, Kol Kinui Nazidik, and then Yodis. Now, the question is why? Why doesn't the mention Yodis first?
You don't teach the exceptions to the rule until you tell the rule.
Yeah, but Kinui Nazidik is also accepted. The Ikan Nazir is Hareini Nazir. Kinui Nazidik is Hareini Nazik. That's already not the main rule. It's already like an exception. That's already how do you say a corollary. It's already a deviation from the regular rule. So if you're already deviating, put Yodis in first. So you already explained why the examples you gave Yodis first, because you learned from the pasuk. So already highlighted first in the Mishnah. So we're going to answer in a minute. I said, why don't we answer? We answer before the one first, right? If you're already inserting it in the Mishnah, so insert in the beginning. That we find a bit odd. So why taka don't we begin with Yodis? Why doesn't the Mishnah begin with Yodis? And our answer is, Tana ki mascha be'ika carbon. When it comes to explaining, Kinui is more resembles the Iker and Naziris. I will be a Nazir, or Hareini Nazik. You said the full sentence, but you changed the words. You corrupted the word a little bit and tells you that Ma'atayr is still Nazir. And then it tells you Yodis, which is an incomplete sentence. It's already one step removed. But Le'inyin Perusha, when it comes to explaining, Mefadish Yodis Bereisha, explains Yodis first because Yodis is a drasha. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah said, if a person says, I will be. Now, I will be is an incomplete sentence. Now, I told you before, there's Yodayim Meichichis, and there's Yodayim She'ei Meichichis, and then there's Yodayim that's not even it's not even Yodayim. In other words, so Yodayim Meichichis means it's very clear what you're trying to say. For example, the Gemara Kedushin will have the above and base at the bottom. We'll have a whole discussion if a person says to a woman, Harei Atmu Uresis, missed out the word li. You are engaged. Forgot to say, or didn't say to me. Are you Ishima Kudish or not? Or Hare Atmagadesh, you divorced. We didn't say many from me. Now, the circumstances is obvious. Standing and talking to this woman, and you just didn't pop up to somebody. Obviously, you're something going on between you, some kind of relationship, and they say, yeah, you want to get engaged. So it's obvious. So that might be considered Yodayim Mechichis. Some say that's called Yodayim She'ei Mechichis because you didn't say li. Could be you're a proxy for somebody else. Okay, so we want to know if a person says, "Hey, I will be," that's at best Yadayim She'ei Mechichas. We have no idea what you mean. I will be what? I'll be fasting. I'll be what? Says the Gemara. The person says, "Hey, Harei Nazir." Or hey can mean I will. I will. Hey is I will. I will what? Says the Gemara. Maybe Dilma Hebetay's Kamar, maybe Ahe means I will fast. And if Ahe means I will fast, that means it's a Yadayim She'ei Mechiach, right? Because it's an incomplete sentence, plus it's not conclusive. And therefore it's a question. What do you call it? Dilma Hebetay's Kamar, Shmuel. So Shmuel answers, Ki going Shahay Nazar, I will upon. So Ahe on its own is not even Yadayim She'ei Mechiach. The Nazar walking by. So now you look at the circumstances. A Nazar walking by says, what triggered that this was this comment or remark? I will be. Obviously, you saw the Nazir and he inspired you that you also want to be a Nazir. So in other words, Leima Kasava Shmuel, it seems clear for me that Shmuel is of the opinion, Yadayim She'ei Mechich is la having Yadayim. That Yadayim, which is not Mechich, is not Yadayim. So it appears. Why? Because since Shmuel has to tell you that a Nazir walked by, having a Nazir walking by is a Yadayim Mechiach. Even though it's a Yad, it's an incomplete sentence, but it's clear what you're trying to say. If nobody would have walked by, it's a Yadayim She'ein Mechiach. And that means that Shmuel would hold that Yadayim she'ein mechiches loy having Yadayim. In other words, if a Nazir would not have walked by, even though it's a Yadayim of Nazir. Now, why would it be Yadayim of Nazir? I told you because I hate means I'm starting straight away, and straight away you can't start fasting. You can only start fasting at the beginning of the day or at night. So I hate must be something you can start straight, pretty much immediate, and that's like a Nazir. But still, it's a Yadayim. It's a Yadayim, but it's a Mechiach if there's no Nazir walking by. So it must be that Shmuel holds the Yadayim Mechiach lo having Yadayim. Now the problem with that is Shmuel says in the case of Hariat Mukadeshes, he says even though you don't say Li, she's Mukadeshes. Now the way we're learning right now, there's a Machlek Shahal Shat. We're learning those Shayim would say that's called Yadayim She'ein Mechiches, and over there we see clearly having Yadayim. Over here he's telling us if a Nazir would not have walked by, Yadayim She'ein Mechiches will have Yadayim. And so you told me it had to be a Nazir walking by, which we understand is a Yadayim Mechiach. That's clear. Says the Gemara. So let's from here we can assume that Shmuel holds Yadayim She'ein Mechiches is an incomplete sentence, which is not compelling, is not considered Yadayim. So you need to have another walking by, which then treats it like Yadayim Mechiches. How do you reconcile that with the Gemara Kedushin, where it says that if you say Harat Mukadeshes, they're engaged, even though it's Yadayim She'ein Mechiach. Says the Gemara. Amri bizman shenazar oivel fanav lekeles fuke b'milsa acharina. No, really, Shmuel hold that Yadayim she'ein mechiches is also Yadayim, like by Kedushin. If you don't say Li, it's Yadayim she'ein mechiches, and that's good enough. And over here, the problem is it's not even Yadayim she'ein mechich. It's a 50-50 chance. It could be Nazir, but it could be Tainus, and therefore it's a Yadayim. It's not even Yadayim she'ein mechich. That's how Rashi and many of the Shayim learn. And the big machlekes Rashi takes in the conclusion as well. In other words, Bisman should Nazar the fun of Leklas Bugim Mechlin, Aval ain't Nazar the fun of Amanin, the Mahebetainis coming. And therefore, if it's a Hebetainis, it's not even a Yadayim She'ein Mechich. So no, really Shmuel holds Yadayim She'ein Mechich if it's an incomplete sentence, but it's not so conclusive, but it's leaning one way more than the other. For example, if you're talking to a woman and you're saying you're engaged, even though you didn't say to me, probably you meant to me, even though the sentence itself is not clear, it's not complete, it's not even clear, okay, it's good enough. Here, if there's no Nazir walking by, it's not even a Yadayim She'ein Mechich, because it could just as well be Tainus. Right? We don't know what you mean. That's how. Tosfos, however, learns that no. The Gemara concludes that Shmuel Taka hold Yadayim She'ein Mechich lo having Yadayim. And this, in Kedushin, when you say Hareat B'Kadeshes, that's Yadayim Mechiach. Because when you're talking to a woman and obviously you're talking about Kedushin and Gittin, and suddenly you say Hareat B'Kadeshes, it's quite clear that you're talking about to yourself.
It's at you.
Yeah, but you say to who? I could be a shliach. I could be a prak. And those days it was very common to have a shliach. People didn't travel, so said find me. It's quite common. Eliezer was sent by Abraham to find that was the Nadan, yeah. So if a Nazir walks by, it's Yadayim Mechiach. If a Nazir does not walk by, it is a Yadayim, but it's Yadayim She'ein Mechiach, and therefore lo have a Yadayim. Why is it Yadayim? Because, as I told you before, according to Tosfos, Ahei means pretty much straight away. It's leaning more towards Nazir, so it's more than just. It's like, don't say it's not Yadayim at all. It is Yadayim because it's leaning more towards Nazir. Ahei means straight away, or Ahei means I will become or I will be. Again, it's leaning more towards Nazir, but it's for Yadayim She'ein Mechiach because it could be the guy meant Tainus, he wasn't so clear. So no, according to Tosfos, Shmuel holds only Yadayim Mechiches have Yadayim. Yadayim She'ein Mechiches lo have Yadayim. According to Rashi, Yadayim She'ein Mechiches have Yadayim. When it comes to Kedushin, it's not after halacha because they both say it works. The only question is, how do we treat Yadayim? And the real question is, do we look only at the words or do we also look at the circumstances? Because we know if you look only at the words, it's not so clear, but the circumstances, when you're talking to this woman and you haven't brought anybody else up, but all of a sudden now you say,
isn't that the whole discussion? If the Nazir happens to be in front of you or not, it depends.
Okay, true.
The circumstance, which is what
I get it. You're right, but again, Tosfos hold the words also lend themselves because I means I will be or I'll do something quickly. The Rosh says I will be means I'll transform myself. Tosfos says, sorry. I'm saying, yeah. So obviously, according to the Rosh, somebody's a Talmud Chacham, and he knows exactly what he's saying.
or something.
True. Okay, let's continue the Gemara. Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara. The Dilma. Maybe what he meant was, how do we know? Okay, you're saying it probably means Nazir, right? Because Nazir passed by. But how do you know what he meant about a Nazir? How do you know he meant to say, I will behave like a Nazir? Maybe he meant, I will take upon myself. I'm so admirable of this person here, that this person went through the Nazir's process. I will donate the money for the Kabbanis. I'll bring the Kabbanis. Maybe Ahay means that I will bring the Kabbanis in his place, but not that I myself will become a Nazir. Said the Gemara, maybe he meant merely that I will pay for his Kabbanis. Ahay, you saw a Nazir walking by. Hey, I take it upon myself. What? I'll bring his Kabbanis. The Gemara says, in his heart, what he meant, he told us later, what he meant in his heart was that I will become a Nazir. He meant that. In his heart, he thought, B'shas Ma'aseh, that I will become a Nazir. If a Nazir walks by and he told us that's what he had in his heart, we always want to be a Nazir, what's Chavashayli? I would have thought it's not enough that in your heart you thought I'll be a Nazir, but the words have to reflect what you're saying. And maybe these words are garnished. Hey means tinus. That is good enough, because either Tzidayim Shei or or Tzidayim Mechir if a Nazir walks by. Okay, I hate Nazir. If he says I'll beautify, I'll be a Nazir. And all of mitzvah. How do you know beautify means that myself I will become a Nazir? Maybe meant I will do hidden mitzvahs. From now on, I'm going to buy the most expensive esrog in town. I'm going to buy only mitzvahs that are beautiful, for example. And it's interesting, the Gemara always gives the same examples. I'll make a beautiful sukkah. Lulav no, I'm sure what the Gemara means is esrog, even though the Gemara will call lulav is the name for all 4 minim. But it means the esrog. Tzitzis no, have a nice tzitzis. I will write a beautiful sefer Torah or nice parchment. And I will use nice sinews to tie it together. I will make. In fact, if you remember Rashi in Masechta Yuma told after Kippur, they will all bring out the sefer Torah and show off how beautiful they made their mitzvahs. So maybe that's what he meant. I'll beautify the mitzvahs. That Keli Van Vei, he's no the fun of the mitzvahs. I will beautify the mitzvahs. Omar Shmuel. Shmuel said, in fact, I once heard my Zayda. Rashi said that every kid, Tinik Shabbayam, pointed and said, "Oh, that's Hashem." I remember because they were in the field, they were saved miraculously. So he says, "Zek Keli Van Vei, and Vei is Vani Bahu." We and him were together. Zek Keli Vani Bahu. So that's how Rashi says. They pointed to Hashem and said, "We know we were very close." But that's really what Hiddur Mitzvah is. Hiddur Mitzvah is saying that's not because just he commanded me. If you're doing it only because Hashem commanded you, you try to get away with the bare minimum. If you're doing a Hiddur Mitzvah, it's because you really have passion about the mitzvah. I feel a certain kinship with Eibishter. Anyway, so how do we know that he meant to become a Nazir? How much was the Shmuel Shetafis Besari? He's holding on his hair, just like before a Nazir walked by. There has to be something compelling that tells us that he was referring to Nazir. He was holding on to his hair. Why else would you hold on to hair and say, "I'll be beautiful"? Well, Anon is Nazir and Milsa. So that's a question. You're telling me when he says, "I'll beautify myself," he meant Nazir is. No, we know that Nazir is an Avera. Why do you bring a karbachatas? You bring a karbachatas if you contaminated yourself, bring karbachatas because you basically were Nazir for naught and you became tameh while you shouldn't have. But even if you don't become tameh and you practice the Naziris properly, at the end you bring 3 kabbanas. One of them is a chatas, a sin offering. Obviously, you committed a sin. Says the Gemara. Gemara says yes, it is beautifying. It's a good thing to be a Nazir. I feel that Abelazar Kappa. Even according to Abelazar Kappa, the Amar says Nazir Chaytza. He says that the reason why bringing karma chatzas if you became tamei is because you're a sinner. He only limited that to a Nazir that became tamei. The I did the boy missed it because now that you have to, let's say you were tamei for you were Nazir for 2 weeks and then boom, you became tamei by mistake. Now you're upset. You start from scratch and now you regret why you took it by suddenly 30 days became 45 days. Or more because you have to wait 7 days to get to. Suddenly it ruined all your plans. You're frustrated. You have charata what you did. So now you're not enjoying your naziris. That's why he's called you a chayta. The Amar Achman, the Torah says Vayomim, but the early naziris you took that you did is worthless. Is kitame nizra because you became tamei. So Hasam over there, Dilma Osil Mever Al Nizaroisa over there, because you might watch. Now, also another thing. First, you might regret it. Second of all, even if you don't regret it, because it's so long, you're much more likely that you'll commit an avera. To abstain yourself from wine for such a long period, or not to go to be very careful with corpses and all that is very difficult. But an ordinary nazir who did not contaminate himself, never start over again, they're not a sinner. And this is very difficult in the Gemara. So therefore, no means to become a nazir. The difficulty is, we had a Gemara tiny that Shmuel said, see it as atzim and ayah. If somebody denies themselves pleasures from this world, is they're called a chayta, because a nazir is called a chayta. So in other words, and he understood Rabbi Elazar Kapar is that the reason why I bring a chatas, even when you're tired, you bring a chatas at the end, is because you should not have put yourself in that situation. We had the Shimon who kissed that young kid who became a nazir because he saw how handsome he was. He was scared that he'll be attractive to other people, and therefore he did that. No, otherwise, nazir, you're a chayta. So what's Gemara saying here, that the Rabbi Elazar Kapar only was talking when somebody became tummy. So Taisha says in a number of places, and he says it here as well. Look at this, interesting. If somebody has a nightmare on Shabbos, on Friday night, there's a mitzvah to fast. Because Oineg Shabbos, we want you to enjoy Shabbos. You're going to be tense and nervous the whole time. I had this terrible nightmare that foreshadows something terrible is going to happen. Interesting what the nightmares are about. One of them is that you dreamt you were on the chuppah getting married to somebody. But the other one is your Kol Nidre or Neil, I can't remember, on Yom Kippur. But whatever it is, and you're married already, so maybe you're worried that maybe it's a bad sign or something. The dinner is supposed to fast on Shabbos, and then you have to fast on Sunday to do b'chaper for the fact that you fast on Shabbos. So what are you fasting on Shabbos for? So it's a mitzvah to fast on Shabbos, but you did a small avera. But the mitzvah of fasting on Shabbos overrides the small avera, but you still need to do a kapara small avera. And that's what the Gemara means, or what the kapara means. If you were tired for 30 days, you did a small avera becoming a nazir, because why did you abstain and deny yourself drinking wine, one of the pleasures that Hashem gave us in this world? But the mitzvah of being a nazir overrides that. So it's a good thing to be a nazir, even though you're doing a small avera. It's like fasting on Shabbos for a nightmare. But if somebody becomes tamei, then that's taka now. It's much more likely it's a bad thing, the whole thing. So therefore, if a person says, I want to become na to Hashem, then nazir makes sense, even though it's a small avera involved. Okay, we'll stop here and continue tomorrow in Mitzvah Hashem.